Hey guys, welcome. Guy here. It is Monday afternoon, and some things to think about, some things to talk about from the Niners draft. First thing up, I was thinking about this on Sunday and today, and I mean this is not flippant. The story's gotten a little weird. Niners dodged a bullet not hiring, at least in terms of this story, Jeff Ulbrich is there. What a mess that would be. What a mess for the Falcons. And of course, it'll blow over and whatever it is, it'll be and move on. But just something you'd like to avoid. And the Niners ended up waiting and waiting and waiting. They didn't trade for Jeff Ulbrich last year. They didn't get him in a panic this year where I thought, like, oh, maybe if you don't know on Saleh, you just hire Jeff Ulbrich. They got the guy they wanted, who's Robert Saleh, who's an established defensive coordinator. So on that alone, it's the right decision. But the last 48 hours, it would suck if you had a coach, a coordinator, whose son somehow got the protected phone numbers of draft prospects and started calling them. And it's one thing if it's, it happened to Tyler Warren apparently. But when everyone thought it was just Shedeur Sanders that it happened to, it was a real mess. And it is it's just, ugh. That's just 24 or 48 hours you just do not want your organization to be a part of. You don't want them to be a part of the investigation. They did the investigation. Jeff Ulbrich's son, Jax, apologizes in a statement. The Falcons say, we did the investigation. There's going to be no punishment. But you know how this stuff goes. Like, there'll be another, in a week, Mike Silver's going to have some recording. It's like, oh, it turned out that he did know. If he didn't know, that's what's best. Hopefully he didn't know. Jeff, he wasn't involved. My guess is he wasn't involved. But the point is, you just dodge that bullet. You don't want to be a part of that 24 to 48 hours. Oh, God. You don't want John Lynch answering that question or Kyle Shanahan. It's just messy. Just one less mess. You got enough going off in the offseason. All right, what did these guys do, the 49ers, and what didn't they do? And some more insights for you. I just put a video out with Bryant Haynes, who coached CJ West at Indiana as the defensive coordinator at Indiana. He is one of the best college football coaches in the country. If you watch that video, you know that he's twice been a semifinalist for the Assistant Coach of the Year award in college football. They had the number one. Indiana had the number one rush defense in the country last year. And so the Niners take their nose tackle. So I'm not going to rehash it all here, but you can go listen to that interview, go watch that. He was really good. Did that this morning, and he was really, really good, really insightful. The Niners, one of the things obviously that got a lot of attention was the lack of offensive linemen in the draft, particularly at premium spots. John Lynch said after the draft that they were open to it. It just never quite materialized. So maybe there was a guy they liked and he got drafted, and so they pivoted and went another direction. And I'm fine with it. I know that was a big debate going in. I was open to taking a left tackle if they liked him, but as we talked about a lot before the draft, they do not reach for traits on offensive linemen in the way that they do sometimes for defensive linemen, right? Like the Niners are not taking the offensive line equivalent of Drake Jackson, especially not high-ish, right? Especially not like first, second, third round. They don't do it. They've said it. And John Lynch reiterated it. Kyle Shanahan, it was last draft, really said it clearly when he was asked about some of the guys in the second round. And he basically said, like, yeah, we don't like them. We didn't like them in the second round. So, from that standpoint, because they've gotten some criticism, Warren Sharp put out a draft value eval, so the Niners draft guys too early. I know I told you, if you saw it the other day or heard it on the show the other day, that I talked to a scout who said that Micah Williams was drafted right around where he thought. Now, that same scout told me that he just based on his team's board, thought that the Niners reached on Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oklahoma State. He said, I thought that was a 2-round reach on Nick Martin. So, in that case, in that In that case, that person who agreed with where they drafted Michael Williams thought they reached for the linebacker. I sent him a list of the Niners draft, not that he needed my list, and I said, "Who'd you like?" And he said, "I like Jordan James, who the Niners drafted in the 5th round, and I think I like Curtis Rourke if he can get back to health, the linebacker the Niners took in the 7th round." I was at Oregon for the spring game, as some of you know, on Saturday, and I was at the stadium when the Niners were on the clock late in the 4th round. And I tweeted, somebody there told me, he's like, the Niners like Jordan James, our running back. So the Niners were like on the clock. And I tweeted like, wonder if this is where the Niners take Jordan James. Then they didn't take him. And I was like, oh shit, let the cat out of the bag. So I deleted the tweet like 5 minutes later. I didn't want to be the guy responsible for some team jumping the Niners in that spot. And then he got drafted like 9 spots later, whatever the Niners pick at the top of the 5th round was, maybe 12 spots, whatever it was. So I know they like him. They like Jordan James. I like Jordan James. He's a good player. Played a lot of games. Some of these guys played a lot of games last year, and he played a lot of games last year. So I think there's a little bit, as much as I agree with the general consensus that it would help if the Niners were better on the offensive line, I also understand why they focused more on the defensive line. One of the reasons, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you focus on the defensive line is that it is out of your control. Robert Saleh can come in. Robert Saleh, Niners have a great year. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Robert Saleh is a head coach again somewhere else. And then you don't have the guy who you trust more than anybody else to call your defense. On offense, the philosophy is very well established from Kyle Shanahan and even before that with Mike Shanahan. They don't go, for the most part, premium offensive linemen unless it's the most premium and then they're interested, like Trent Williams. But otherwise, they feel, and for the most part, it's been proven true, that they can manipulate with play action, with a good run game, with movement. And I think the evidence is pretty good that it's there. So even though I would like the Niners to upgrade at offensive line, we have to also acknowledge that their offensive line did not cost them in the way their defensive line did last year. They were 4th in passing yards. They were 8th in yards per carry on offense. And they allowed the 8th fewest sacks in the NFL last year. Now, whatever the number was, 34, 36, still felt like too much. But they were top 10 in passing, in rushing yards per carry, and in preventing sacks on an awful team without Christian McCaffrey. Well, awful team, awful record. Without Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams injured, multiple injuries on offense, and they were still a top 10. Oh, I didn't even look at scoring. We can look at scoring. Now, I know people go like, well, okay, but we got to be better red zone. We got to be better short yardage. Yes, have to be better. And I think the part where it really is easy to point out is when you think about like the Super Bowl. But Chris Jones on 3rd down bursting through the right side of the offensive line was a mental error, not a physical error. And 3rd down in crunch time, the ball getting batted down by Steve Spagnuolo's pressure, that was not a physical error by the offensive line. That was a mistake. That was Spagnuolo beating Kyle Shanahan. Niners were what? 1, 2, 3, 4. ESPN.com. I love your website, but can we get ranks next to the team names? I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or 15th in scoring offense. Not good enough. But they were 6-win. Like, the point is, the defensive line was a bigger issue than the offensive line. And so I had no issue with the volume of offensive line versus defensive line. Comment, their offensive line in the Super Bowl cost them in the Super Bowl with a free blitz. Up here, Spencer Burford, mental mistake. Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, not having the tools on different play to work around the corner blitz. They weren't ready for that, but that wasn't lack of skill on the offensive line. So while I agree, I'll say the same thing I said last week about Will Campbell going to the Patriots really high because the arm length thing. And the thing I heard several people say was like, well, we saw arm length, how much of a detriment it could be when the Eagles really took advantage of Joe Thuney in the Super Bowl. The Patriots would kill to have their right tackle taken advantage of in the Super Bowl. That would be a crazy success for them. And this thing has proven that it can get them there. And in my opinion, it is good enough to win a championship. They didn't do it. I'm not arguing against want to get it better, but I do think we get a little bit carried away with relative to the league, how quote unquote bad it is. I mean, just wait. Just wait till Colton McKivitz gets, I don't even know how much money in free agency next year. Like that one's coming. They just got a backup guard paid. What do you think their starting right tackle is going to get paid? Everyone's like, get rid of McGlinchey. And the Broncos are like, well, we'll pay him more than anybody. So, it's offensive line is like officiating. Everybody hates the one they're watching. Like these referees suck. I remember this doing the Pac-12 or football. And some of you who follow college football know that Pac-12 football for many years was heavily criticized for its officiating. And I watched every week. I was doing the games and I'm watching national and I'm watching it going, yes, it's not to excuse mistakes, but it is literally the same everywhere. It's the same. Now they had some structural controversies that, got them attention, but it's the same. And it is the same everywhere. And I think, the Niners address the real issue. This team, as we know, what do we know? There's several things we know about the 49ers. And one of them is they are much better served playing from ahead. And their offensive line has been good enough to move the ball. But if they cannot stop the run, they are sunk. Because if a team gets a lead on them and can run the football, basically the Niners formula, and then can also tee off on the offensive line, for whatever reason, it completely neutralizes Kyle Shanahan in the fourth quarter. So you could argue that the single most important thing that a Kyle Shanahan team must do is stop the run. You could argue that. Like, as long as they can stop the run, if you're scoring points, the Niners can score points with you. Or if they can run the football and score points, even if your offense is explosive throwing the ball, the Niners can control the game and slow it down and limit possessions with their run game and their play action game. But if they cannot stop the run, it affects everything. And you could argue it's like that for every team. And of course, you can't always be ahead in games. And you would love a formula, I would, where you can hit explosive plays and score quickly. And you don't need 11 play drives. That'd be great. That's true. I don't want to be you can't be too critical of it because they've been to two Super Bowls with this formula. So that's the formula. That is the formula. And I like this quote, stop the run to have fun. It just affects everything in such a positive way for them that I really, if they had taken an offensive lineman they love, that would have been great. But the worst thing you could do, not the worst thing you can do, the last thing that they do, and the evidence is in, is take offensive linemen they don't really like. So, I mean, you look back at the Niners offensive line drafts. Last year, they took two offensive linemen, Pooney in the third round, Kingston in the sixth, Jarrett Kingston. Pooney became their starting right guard. The year before, they took no offensive lineman. In 2022, they took Spencer Burford in the fourth round. They took Nick Zakelj in the sixth round. Burford ends up playing a ton of meaningful snaps. Zakelj played some and is about to play more, probably. The year before that, they took Aaron Banks in the second round, played a ton of meaningful snaps. So what is that? That is, and then they didn't take an offensive lineman in 16 in 20. They didn't take one. Oh, I'm sorry, they did take one in 19, Justin School in the 6th round. They took McGlinchey in 18, and that's it. So the vast majority, we're talking about whatever that is, 8 guys. A significant majority of the offensive linemen they take, they play. So they do a good job. They do an excellent job of picking offensive linemen that will end up playing for them. Defensive linemen, we see less, but they just take less of them. Who they take, they like. Oh, I was wrong. I said they didn't take one in 20. They took McKivitz in 20 in the 5th round. He's their starting right tackle. I think we got to acknowledge they do an excellent job of being picky with offensive linemen in the draft. Now you'd be like, well, I wish they would have taken Tristan Wirfs instead of Javon Kinlaw. Yeah, same. Sending a text. Same. But so it'll be, that's the other thing with them now, just going back and looking at that, Connor Colby in the 7th round from Iowa. As someone who's watched a lot of Iowa football, we know what Iowa guys can do, block the run. We'll see if that guy ends up. The history tells us it's more likely than not, although I don't think they've had a 7th round offensive lineman in that stretch, that he ends up playing for them. I don't think I missed anybody. And I don't think they've had a 7th round offensive lineman. No. So there you go. Comment, Jonathan Feliciano is the answer. Bro needs to unretire. The Malik Mustafa injury. What an incredible job of hiding that situation. Now, they didn't end up taking a safety very high, not till the 5th round, but still, wow. That was obviously, they wanted to hide it for draft purposes, which makes me think that they were open to taking a safety higher than they did. It's just good business, I guess. I know that there has been a lot of worry about that. How will that affect their defense? It will, but their safety play has been average for a few years now. And I think that there's been a lot of celebration of their 2024 draft class. Rightfully so. Those guys, especially on defense, did a lot quick. Well, not especially on defense. Pooney, Mustafa, those guys did a lot. Bernardo Green, those guys did a lot. The bar also raises now for Mustafa. Pooney already played. He was a regular starter. Bernardo Green. The bar now, the goalposts do move when you go from rookie with a role to second-year guy with more responsibility. I'm saying all that to say, those guys are so promising. Malik Mustafa is so promising. But there's still a lot to prove. And it's a shame. It's a shame, these off seasons between year 1 and year 2 are so big for taking some of what you learned in real action and applying it and understanding. And I think that's really where it sucks, is for him to miss out on that part of what's a very big offseason for him. But no, not but. And also, I think it'd be an overreaction to think that, they can't function at a high level as a defense without him, as long as these other guys hit. But yeah, he's going to be missed. He's going to be missed. But he's going to also need to develop into more to clean up what's been, the safety play has just been inconsistent for several years now, since the Hufanga All-Pro year. Let's see here. All right, let's get this. Let's see. What do we got? Comment. Isaac Garendo takes the biggest leap going into year 2. I will die on that hill. Okay. Okay, you might die on that hill. Like, he's got to stay healthy. That's why they needed more running backs. You know, and they signed. They didn't draft. They signed, but got to be healthy. And I'm concerned about his ability to stay on the field. How about the Dre Greenlaw? Speaking of, there was a minute there where it looked like Dre Greenlaw might miss this season. Then it turned out, then the reports became, no, it's not a tear, it's a strain of his quadricep muscle. But, you know, just to reiterate, you guys know where I stood on Dre Greenlaw. Love the player. Love the player, as a scout likes to say. I really like him. But I understood. Now, they actually tried to go get him. So for the people in the organization who were a little more restrained on Dre Greenlaw, it sounded like maybe John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were like really wanted to keep him. Maybe organizationally, maybe Parag was a little more restrained. I was on team restraint. As somebody who really liked Dre Greenlaw, I still felt like it was really risky given his injury history, given that he got hurt, came back and got hurt. So comment, Jordan James is a great pick because he's a plug and play running back. Yeah, you know, Jordan James had, not only was he a 1,400 yard, whatever, 1,200 yard rusher, 15 rushing touchdowns, 47 catches last year. And, you know, he played in offense. Will Stein is the Oregon offensive coordinator, and he is one of the best in the country. He'll be a head coach in due time. He's going to be able to pick and choose where he wants to go. But they've had, you know, two different quarterbacks the last couple of years. They had Bo Nix 2 years ago. They had Dylan Gabriel this last year. They've done a really good job of running the football, of adjusting their offenses to their quarterbacks, which also means responsibility for a guy like Jordan James. And if you come from Will Stein's offense, there's a lot put on you, and you got to understand a lot, and you got to be smart. So yeah, you got to. I'm just looking at, somebody said, well, what about pressures? Here we go. But that's team pressures. That's player pressures. I need team pressures. Someone wants to hit me with an "I told you so." Their offensive line is not any good. Let's see. Blocking grades. Oh, that's team. That's going to take me a minute. Here we go. What percentage of drop back, pressure sack, dropbacks under pressure? All right, here we go. Dropbacks under pressure. Brock Purdy. Now, this is not percentage. I need percentage. Oh, I got it, y'all. I got it. Under pressure. All right. Under pressure percentages, and we're going to make it like starters. Bryce Young pressured the most. Herbert second. Rodgers was pressured on 11% of his dropbacks. That was third. Daniel Jones, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, CJ Stroud, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, and Hurts. All right, let me go the other way. Fewest pressure. So Brock was middle of the pack. Like the least pressure percentage, you know, Kyler, Geno, Stafford, ball comes out. Burrow, Bo Nix, ball comes out, short yardage passes. Baker, Goff, May, Mahomes, Cousins, Williams, Hurts, Purdy. So Purdy was right in the middle of the pack. He was pressured on 6.3% of his pressures. Jalen Hurts was 6%. Jaden Daniels was 6.6%. Jordan Love was 6.6%. Sam Darnold was 7%. All right. So it's not, you know, so much. Now, a lot of that stat is controlled by the quarterback, and it's controlled by the plays that are getting called. But let's look at, while we're here, by the way, batted passes, because it's always like, Brock short. Cousins, 6 batted passes, most in the league. Brock and Geno Smith, 5. Geno's bigger. Jordan Love, 4. Herbert, 4. Like, Justin Herbert is humongous. He's huge. He's 6'6". He had 4 batted passes. Jared Goff is really tall. He's 6'5", 6'6". He had 4 batted passes. Brock had 5. Now, those guys throw the ball more. But the point is just like, I think, what I've said about Brock? I don't think his height shows up on batted passes. I think his height shows up when pressure gets pushed up the gut into him and he can't totally get the ball where he wants to get it. And those passes don't get batted. So my argument has never been it doesn't affect things. It does, but batted passes is not usually the pace where it shows up. Comment, San Mateo. McKivitz is going to shock the world and get $15 to $20 million in free agency next offseason. Which, like Banks, will be so dumb. But will it? Maybe instead of thinking the whole NFL is stupid when it comes to paying offensive linemen, maybe we should go, oh, maybe these guys are better than we thought. Maybe it's harder to upgrade. That's the way to put it. Maybe it's harder to upgrade than we thought. Clearly, that's what the league tells us when they pay Mike McGlinchey, when they pay Aaron Banks. The league says it's harder to upgrade offensive linemen than you think it is. Drinking a little ad-free Cometeer coffee, link down in the description. It's fantastic. I love it and highly recommend it. And if you use the link in the description, I might get some free coffee, but that's about it. I'm not getting paid. Although I would happily do that. Comment. The Niners were very bad on 3rd and short last year. The offensive line and lack of McCaffrey to blame. Comment, better the devil you know on offensive line than the devil you don't. I think there's a lot of truth to that. What else? Oh, I think I had another scouting report for you. Where'd that go? Do I? I don't know. Did I share this one yet on Alfred Collins? I did a couple Alfred Collins interviews that you can go watch. I don't know if I shared this scout take on Alfred Collins with you guys. Massive. This is the defensive tackle from Texas. Massive, freak physically, good athlete, solid run player, strong, not the most rugged, raw as a rusher. Can he reach his ceiling? ? He's been a bit of a tease. So there's an Alfred Collins for you. So, you know what? Somebody asked a question here. Where did this go? I want to get to. Let's see. Where did it go? I saw a question I want to answer. Here we go. Super chat. Got a reward. Steven here. Appreciate the super chat. Steven says, thoughts on Jordan Watkins? Not seeing him talked about much. Feel like he could end up being one of our best picks when we look back in a few years. This was we talked so much about Alec Iomanor, different type of receiver. This is your Debo replacement, maybe. And you know what I've said, which is like, you don't need to replace Debo. You just, in terms of like that body type or that style, but you just need a guy that can catch the ball and run. I mean, his tape, having watched it over the weekend, I like him. I mean, they were explosive on offense. I realize I'm repeating something I said a few years ago when the Niners drafted, what was his name? The fast guy who doesn't play anymore. I'll get there. Danny Gray. SMU, I kept wanting to say Rice. From SMU was when you take a guy from a spread offense, you just have guys who played a lot of snaps. And so this guy, in theory, played a lot of snaps. Now he got hurt, but he put up big numbers. I wouldn't want to draft your spread quarterback necessarily, but your spread receiver I'm interested in. A lot of times too, that offense gets viewed, it's pretty easy for the quarterback, but it does also require a receiver to have some feel. So, you know, when your thing is you're going to get guys the ball in space, the fact that they're not 6'3" doesn't really matter as much if you're manufacturing space for them. So I like it. Like, I think they do, in some ways, it feels like they do a better job identifying contributions with receivers that are this size than bigger guys. I still would love for them to have a, what do you run 40, 4.37? I mean, great. Just anybody. Can he get off of corners enough to use that speed? That'll be the question, because just anybody that can move down the field and allow the Niners to throw it, quote unquote, over the top, even though he doesn't play outside, he plays the slot, it would be a welcome addition. And we know the Niners can create explosive plays from the slot. So, there's always this learning curve with receivers with Shanahan, as we know. I'm holding my breath to find out if there was a learning curve last year for Jacob Cowing, or if he's just not going to be able to contribute on offense. But I love 4.37 speed. I mean, they tried it with Danny Gray. It didn't work for a variety of reasons, inconsistent hands. So you know what? We'll put that on the list of when it comes time for OTAs. Can you catch? But I mean, pick 138. God, they did. They had so many picks. So I made a note, Stephen, that you're predicting that'll be one of their best picks. Tougher Dante Pettis. How quickly I forget Danny Gray. You guys didn't, though. Between Cowing, Watkins, Nayor, nice to have multiple speed options for the moment. Yeah, I did a couple Nebraska games. Isaiah. It would have been not, they changed offensive coordinators during the year in Nebraska. At the end of the year, if you're a college football fan, you'll remember that at the very end of the year, they brought in Dana Holgorsen to call their offense because their pass game was just not taking off with Dylan Raiola. Dr. Guy, are the Broncos and Greenlaw's people lying about the severity of his injury, or was Jennifer Lee Chan wrong? I don't know. Find out. We got a BYU. Jacob Robinson, the kid from BYU, is going to be great. All right. I have not watched him. Should I go watch him? .510, runs a 4.4. Cool. 11 picks. I'm into it. Victoria, Purdy running for his life again this season. Good news is they'll have a really good draft pick next year again. I don't think so. They will not be drafted. My prediction is they're going to go from drafting 11th to 11 wins. Go look at the schedule. Is just, you're not going to have to be a great team against this schedule. So I think they're in good shape. All right. If you didn't see it, go check out that Brian Haynes interview. I think he was really good. No, I know he was really good. And it's very meaty on CJ West. That went up this morning, so go watch that video.